This is the Nurburgring, and it's the most ruthless and longest track there is. It's over 20 kilometers long, and it takes an NLS GT3 car around 8 minutes just to complete one lap. So today I thought I'd tackle the green hell and attempt to do a 24-hour race solo. Yes, you heard that right, no teammates to help me, just a 24-hour race by myself, and I'm going to try win it against the hardest AI there is. But why am I doing this? Well, me and my friend, who thinks he's a Nurburgring expert, got into an argument over who's the faster driver, in which he said, "You can't even do one lap of the Nurburgring without crashing. You're terrible." So today I'm going to prove him wrong by winning a 24-hour race solo at the Nurburgring against the hardest AI to wipe that smug smile off his face, otherwise I will never hear the end of him saying he is the fastest driver and I'm terrible. So we started the race in the Porsche GT3 RS at the back of the grid for a rolling start to the beginning of the next 24 hours. I was pretty nervous at this point and was worried I set the race up wrong, but it's too late now and we were eventually underway. Our first few minutes weren't too bad and we're making our way slowly through the field. There were a few bits of carnage and drivers running wide on the first lap, but so far I was pretty happy with my pace. As the first lap finished, we managed to make a few positions until the issues started happening with me. The Nürburgring is known for being one of the hardest tracks in the world, and I understand why. After a few laps went by, I was just making mistake after mistake. I was gaining positions but then losing them all back. I don't know how many times I overtook this Aston Martin on the Dottinger Straight over and over again. I was getting into a groove, but just a slight misjudgment and I was off the track and being super punished for it. Even at one point, one of the grey and blue Porsches was having enough of me and being super aggressive and pushing me off the track. By the end of the first hour, I only made up 10 positions due to my inconsistency. It was a major problem and I needed to get hold of it if I were going to win this race. As the next hour came around, the consistency did gradually improve, but the odd mistake was still there. Just before the 2-hour mark, we managed to take the lead after everyone pitted and came out just in front after our pit stops. But as the next couple of laps went by, second and third place, both in the Mustangs, did slowly start to catch me. I managed to keep in front for a couple of laps until I eventually made another mistake and dropped to third. Despite the mistake, I felt like that I was slowly improving with consistency and my pace. I just needed to get it together before what was later to come, and that was the 24-hour cycle and the pitch dark of the green hell. It was now a couple of hours later and I was in a really good groove. I managed to take back the lead on an offset strategy to the two Mustangs, who I believe are running the soft tyres because they seem to pit a lot more frequently than me. Plus there were minimal mistakes at this point and I was just trying to get my head down as the sky started to slowly turn darker. We had a comfortable lead to second place just after the 4-hour mark, but I wasn't too sure what to expect once the track goes completely dark. I'm not sure on how dark it can get, how quick should I drive, and most of all, how I will cope for around 10 hours of this. But the next couple hours passed and the sky began to get slowly and slowly darker until eventually the car's headlights came on and parts of the tracks were flung into complete darkness. This was a massive worry for this challenge if I could make it through the night, as the track yet alone is challenging in the daylight, never mind in darkness. At this point we also started to run the soft tyre now just to get a healthy pace deficit to second place, just in case there was any mistakes later on, but we were still leading, which was a good sign. By hour 9 the track was pretty much at its full darkness, I believe it was going to be, with some corners just completely invisible to see, in which it was a guessing game at this point if I got my turning right or wrong. The next couple of hours before hour 9 I had lots of little off-track moments and one major spin in which we lost a lot of time. Second place thankfully wasn't anywhere near at this point, but I still had to remain attentive to make it through the night. We had around 6 to 8 hours left of darkness before we would start to see some daylight, in which I was praying to see. Hour after hour passed and we were still just about leading. There were lots of mistakes still in there, which was a bit of a concern, and I believe second was slowly catching us due to this. And at the same time, we had quite a few penalties adding up, which was at 0.25 miles worth, which I believe accumulates to around 10 seconds. So we have to be very careful not to keep adding these up, otherwise we may just lose to technicality. But as the hours passed and as we got to the halfway point in this challenge, I could slowly start to see the track lighting up ever so slightly, as some previous blind corners started to slowly become more invisible. So there is a possibility we might survive out of the pitch dark of the green hell and still in the lead of the race going to the last half of this challenge. As we got to around 9 hours left, daylight started to become much more prominent in the sky, which was a good motivation to keep going. At this point my hands felt awful and I was so tired, but seeing the night start to slowly turn to day really spurred me on to go further. By around 8 hours left, it was now early morning and I could start to see fully the track without having to guess anymore, and it seemed like we conquered a big challenge of the Nurburgring at night. That challenge was now starting to be over and it was just about trying to stay sane and keep that motivation high until the end. I found that trying to go for fastest laps were helping me, and just after the 7 hours left mark, I managed to set my fastest lap so far, which was an 8-minute 32.8, almost 2 seconds quicker than my previous time. But as time started to pass, it felt like I was getting slower and slower as we were getting closer to the end. My hands felt awful at this point and it was super challenging just to try finish this challenge. Lap after lap was going by and it felt like the time wasn't going down. There were only a few hours left, but I had zero energy. My lap times were getting worse, plus we kept making lots and lots of mistakes. The only good thing was that we were a lap ahead of the whole field, but the most challenging part of the race was now, and that was trying to make it to the end. I didn't know if to carry on, but just after 4 hours left, I decided to take a little break just to recuperate my energy, rest my hands, and get a can of Monster to try take me to the end. After that mini break, I put in another 2 laps to eventually put me into the last 2 hours of this whole 24-hour race. It's been quite the long journey so far, and my motivation started to come back a little more now that I could see the end in sight. The race was a long battle, firstly trying to catch the AI and stop making so many mistakes, then an even bigger challenge of driving for about 10 hours in the pitch darkness of the Nurburgring, which was no easy feat, to now with sore hands, completely exhausted and only a couple hours left to go. My aim was now just to try make it to the end and also try get my lap time below an 8-minute 30. Just before the last hour mark, I managed to put my best lap time in so far, then a little later I was going to improve by 2 seconds, which would have put me below that lap time. However, thanks to this amazing car, they decided to screw me over and disqualified my lap by hitting into the side of me. So I had to continue going for that lap until the end, as the timer ticked slowly down until eventually we got to the final lap of the full 24 hours. But in the end, I unfortunately wouldn't be able to finish my lap, as the race would end there and then at the exact 24-hour mark. It was a really hard challenge doing a 24-hour race solo, but I'm glad to say I eventually did it. It was such a great feeling mentally, but not physically. And of course I had to brag to my friend. I think I can say I might be a better driver than him at the Nurburgring.